In the news right now, Todd Gurley and the fact that he's the biggest risk, in my opinion, in 2019. You think people would kind of be at least on board with that thinking or be a little cautious of him, but he still has a first-round ADP, which is kind of head-scratching to me given he's never rebounded. He played very bad in the Super Bowl. He's had knee injuries in the past, and there's a lot of shadiness going around his injury and what's going on with him. And then there's a recent video as of Wednesday night from TMZ of him limping out of a restaurant. Some people say he was not limping. He was walking funny. To me, there was a clear point where he was definitely dragging his leg a little. I want to know your take on that video and what it means, and did it change anything for you? And I also want to know, do you have Todd Gurley as a bust as well, somebody you're avoiding at least to a certain point in a draft?
Yeah, I got exact answer for that. So a lot of people have like a pimp lip or whatever you want to call it. So what you need to do, so I'm not factoring that video in a lot, but to be assigned, see, I'm very exact, non-biased, so we're going to use a scientific method here. Show me a clip of him walking in street clothes and then compare it to that. Right, like before like week 15 regular season. So that shouldn't be hard to find. So we find that and then compare it to that. Did he have a limp back then? Because some people kind of walk like that. Yes, he is limping in the video. So it may mean something, it may not. Regardless, I don't care about the video. Todd Gurley is a guy I'm probably avoiding because knee is serious, arthritis is serious. And I'm not a doctor and know anything about this stuff, but I do work with a lot of chiropractors, a lot of doctors on my podcast. You can talk about specific football injuries like Gronk and whatnot. And I also work with people in the stem cell industry. So all this stuff could help him. Obviously, it's probably more concerning if you're in a keeper dynasty league, but he's just a guy I'm avoiding in the first round. Like, what is it? Like number 7, let's just say, is like a good place people are ranking him and drafting him, right? Number 7 overall.
7 and 9. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and that's just like, no, that's too much. I'd rather just get the top wide receiver or just any other running back like Joe Mixon or somebody, because it's just way too serious. Like, that's way too much risk for me. Like, and we saw it all happen. I think people aren't weighing the pros and cons properly.
Yeah, there's a risk versus reward scale that I always tell people to use, and when you have no evidence of him returning to form, that's where the problem lies. That's where he's loaded with more risk than reward. If he had come back and maybe shown some signs that he was doing good in the Super Bowl, there wasn't this whole like secret of, what's going on with Todd Gurley. Nothing's going wrong. Nothing's going on with me. And then he's clearly injured. He's got arthritis, which doesn't get better in the knee. I believe the only cure for arthritis is to replace the joint. I know you can try and slow it down. You can use meds. You can try and, help keep things at bay, but arthritis doesn't get fixed in the knee. That's not something that they have. And I have a lot of history with knee issues. I've torn my ACL, my MCL, my LCL, snapped my patellar tendon off my kneecap and my other knee. I know quite a bit about knees, unfortunately, and I do know that if you have arthritis and you have issues of carrying the football at all, and you're not going to get better, you're only going to get worse. And even if he bounces back, let's say, does some stem cell, whatever, the odds of him being ready for week 1 for a full workload are, I think, slim to none. And then you throw him in there late in the game of the offseason and he's not prepared, he's going to get hurt. I just don't see how this could end well for anybody.
Yeah, what's the best case scenario?
There
like
isn't.
They take it. No.
Yeah.
Seriously, like, what's the best case scenario for a Todd Gurley owner for redraft leagues? He doesn't, like you said, he doesn't get a full workload. He takes a couple games off. He's not as explosive, or he's a little bit more hesitant to cut. What is that? That is not a first round pick.
That is not. It's not. And who another guy I think, since we're on this topic, and is James Conner, to me, is not a safe first-round pick as well. A guy that was on my number 2, he's my number 2 bold prediction for 2018. I've challenged anybody to find stuff that is written bolder on him than I wrote last year. But James Conner, to me, he is at a level where you're paying for a guy that has tons of red flags. And I think that with your first-round pick, like you said, it needs to be somebody safe. It needs to be somebody that doesn't have a lot of risk. And with Jaylen Samuels tearing it up at the end of the year, filling in for him, Connor proving he could hold up, guys get hurt. It doesn't necessarily mean you're going to always get hurt, but he did get hurt when trying to shoulder the workload. And then Eddie Faulkner is the running backs coach for the Pittsburgh Steelers, who was Jaylen Samuels' coach back in college at NC State. I just think that the writing is on the wall for him to be one of those risky guys that if you put your first round pick on the line, it could burn you if you don't cuff the two, and it might be tough to cuff the two because Jaylen Samuels will be a very popular pick given how good of a receiving back he is, and they lost Antonio Brown. They might utilize him all over the field, even if they throw Connor out there as their number one starter. And then the last thing I'll add, and then I'll get your take, is that there's been no, anointed, here's our starter, James Conner is the guy. Everyone's assuming that will be the case, and one of my predictions is going to be that kind of becomes cloudy in the coming weeks and months. But I'd love to get your take on James Conner because a lot of people do like him.
I don't believe when people say that anyway. He's the bell cow. He'll be fine. Just like how Todd Gurley was going to be fine for Super Bowl, and that didn't happen. So, but yeah, Todd Gurley. Super Bowl was the ultimate test. That takes out all the BS. It takes out everything, and he didn't perform Super Bowl. So that's a pretty good test. We've seen that with Tucker. Anyway, with this James Conner thing. So where would you draft James Conner? There's got to be a play. Todd Gurley, for me, I'm drafting him in the third round. That's not going to happen.
Right. No,
where would you draft Conner?
And you know what? I've got a lot of hate on that when they say, where would you draft Gurley? Because there is a line in the sand, and it's not flip-flopping. I find it so funny when someone says you flip-flop when you like a guy and you don't like a guy. It depends on ADP. Everything is about ADP. Everything.
It's about 100% about ADP.
Yeah. If James Conner fell to the late second round, I would probably take him because I would then overreach and cuff him to Jaylen Samuels. He's not going to fall to the bottom of the second round, just like you said with Todd Gurley. Todd Gurley I would take in the third round, and I've said that, and I've got ripped apart from people. Oh, I'm never taking your device ever again in some comments on Instagram on that, which is funny because I said I'd rather have Dalvin Cook than Todd Gurley. Now, are there scenarios where I think I would draft Todd Gurley to trade him? There are scenarios that enter my mind, but if I drafted Todd Gurley at all, it would be to trade him because I can maximize the value. But here's the one phenomenon I think is so funny in fantasy football, and a lot of people don't. There's a gap in logic to where you'd have 5 or 6 owners not willing to pass on Todd Gurley in a draft because they don't want to look stupid. They feel like they have to take him. But as soon as the draft is over, if you were one of those 5 owners, the other 4 owners won't trade for him for anything. And it's just a funny thing. So if you go ahead and draft Todd Gurley, don't just assume because other people would have drafted him that you're going to be able to trade him for even close to what you want. So that's league culture. That's league to league. Because I always tell people they ask me a complicated math question, and I like the numbers, but I'm like, hey, you're trading with humans. Yeah.
And they're like, what does that mean? I'm like, we could talk about this. I said we could talk about this trade scenario for 80 minutes, 100 minutes, and tell you exactly what I think. And at the end of the day, the guy could just be like, no, I don't like you.
Yeah.
Or your mom's ugly.
Yeah.
You don't know who you're
or the guy one of the guys in my buddy leagues that I do is like, I don't feel like trading. You could offer him your entire team. I want to see how this plays out in week 1. That guy's the never trader guy in your league.
I call it trade hater. Hater. And sometimes a league, I have one league. My main league is a trade hating league. So it is what it is. I'm fine with it. You just got to know. You just got to keep yourself in check. Let's get back to Conner. So I disagree with Conner a little bit. I like him more. Let me put it like this. So I'm not in love with Conner. So I think Lev Bell's ahead of Conner in my book. And I guess it's kind of mixed. A lot of people think Conner's ahead of Bell. Yep. Bell's ahead of Conner. So I don't love Conner necessarily, and you made some good points. But if you're drafting a running back, you want to Conner's there at the end of the first, beginning of the second, which is kind of pushing into being a second rounder already.
Right.
But I'm saying that's kind of your guy. There's not really any workhorses left there. I guess, Derrick Henry, more risk, but could be better. I guess he's being drafted way later, I assume.
Top of the 4th.
That's kind of late. He's on my list.
Ridiculous,
you wanted me to talk about sleepers? Okay.
We can. He's on mine too. I love
that's actually a bad example because that's way too late. But anyway.
Well, no, it's actually a good it's actually.
Let me sum it up like this real quick. So if you're gonna not take Conner, I think you got to take a top wide receiver there because there's maybe not too many running backs to take in that range. I mean, it depends. It depends on. So we talked about, it's all about ADP, also flow of the draft. So depending on the flow of the draft, there's a good chance there's going to be just Connor right there or an elite wide receiver. So you would have to take that elite wide receiver unless you're going to go reach for Derrick Henry, and that's second round might, I don't know. His ADP will jump. You know how ADPs go. Just like NFL draft, how someone's stock goes up or down, like all of a sudden. Derrick Henry's is one of those guys whose stock will go up. He'll be like an early third rounder, or maybe probably actually second. I see him like more close to a second rounder.
I think he'll level off in the third at some point, but I think that to your point, if you want to pass on a running back that's there and you go with, like, let's say Odell Beckham Jr. has fallen that far into some drafts. If you took Odell at the top of the second or something, and then take your running back in the fourth versus take your running back in the second and your wide receiver in the fourth. So I think that is a good approach, especially Devonta Freeman and Henry are both falling. They're like the last of the top 5 to 10 running back potential guys that are falling into the top of the fourth round, which I think is an insane value for both those guys.
That's crazy. Yeah. Freeman's crazy because Coleman's not there anymore. So it's just like, hey, man, if he doesn't get hurt, you're balling. Like, that's it.
Yeah. And attach Ito Smith to him, which, he's not an insane player that's going to go nuts if he gets in there, but he'll be efficient enough. So if you can handcuff the two together, you're covered at your running back too. And I think that is, and that's, I believe you commented on one of the posts. I think Fantasy Football State of Mind reposted one of my topics of drafting Mahomes. Yeah, I made people choose. You had Mahomes in an auction and no running backs. And then you had Mike Thomas and Antonio Brown, and I think it was DeAndre Hopkins. But you
let me sum up your post because people would I'm in touch with this ADD community. So basically, it was a good post. So basically, you had Mahomes in both scenarios. Yep. Okay, you had Mahomes and the dopest 2 running backs. That's A, and then you had Mahomes and the dopest 3 wide receivers, or let's just, 3 super elite wide receivers. And you're like, choose. So essentially, and I said, at my first instinct, which is like the dumb instinct, which is a lot of people commenting, we're choosing, I think, man, what did I choose? I chose the wide receivers. Yeah, I chose the wide receivers because I was like, oh, you'll be able to trade them. Like, how often you're going to have 3 elite wide receivers? So it's like with the 3 wide receivers and Mahomes, all you're tasked to doing is drafting 1 sleeper running back. Right. If you can get 1 startable running back, you'll make that team work because you can you can get lucky, or you can draft a deep sleeper running back later, or you trade one of your wide receivers for an awesome running back. People are always willing to do that don't have, because and this is another thing that's kind of crazy. Once you draft those 3 wide receivers, the scenario kind of changes and is like, oh, there's only 3 or 4 more left. So it's like there's going to be teams without wide receiver ones. Mm-hmm. Like, even more so that, like, there already is. There's already going to be 1 or 2 crappy teams in your league. Yeah. But if you get those 3 wide receivers, there's a higher chance that there's going to be more people that don't even have a wide receiver one. So they're so desperate to get. And
there's a higher chance of you triggering a trend where people are taking all wide receivers, and then literally you're waiting, 10, 12 picks for your pick, and only like 1 or 2 running backs go. So it's a way to kind of change the dynamic of the draft and the flow.
Yeah, those high-end RB2s and low-end RB1s will be available. Yeah, so like Freeman, Derrick Henry, all those guys will be there to take for cheap too, probably.
That's one of my favorite approaches in 2019, especially in an auction. You can pull it off more in an auction. You can do some trading to get some draft picks up high enough to do that kind of maneuvering. But in an auction, and I'm a big fan of Pat Mahomes investing in an auction. I know there's a lot of QBs that have value. I get it. I hear it. I've been doing this for 15 years. I hear it over and over again. Yet year after year, people regurgitating, you have to wait on a quarterback. But what I tell people is drafting Mahomes early or bidding on him in an auction is not a bad approach. Nothing's a bad approach. You have to draft to your strength. And if you're a good wide receiver drafter, sleeper wide receivers are your thing, then you do need to draft to your strength and draft running backs early. Or if you're the guy at landing sleeper running backs, it sounds like you and I are the same in that. Then going wide receiver, even wide receiver again can work for guys like us because we're stacking the Jaylen Samuels this year and the James Connors of last year. I load up on all of the redraft rookie running backs because one of those guys is going to pop. And like you said, a Freeman or a Henry is going to fall, or somebody of that caliber, of that nature. So I tell people, make sure you draft to your strength and don't listen to anybody that tells you there is one way to go. Like, you can't take a quarterback early. That's stupid. You can take a quarterback early if it works for you. But that scenario, I got more flack on having Mahomes involved at all than people answering the questions and not liking, the player.
What does that have to do with anything? I know. That's a non-factor.
Yeah.
Mahomes is sexy. It makes the post more sexy. Gets it more likes.
Yeah.
Like, what do you want him to put? Matt Stafford? I don't understand why people because A has Mahomes and B has Mahomes. And it's like, it should just get you, it's a social media post. It should just get you excited that you're getting Mahomes. So I don't understand why people got mad at some fictional thing posted in like March or April. I don't even understand that.
Okay, so we are interviewing HuseyinTheBrain from Fantasy Couch. When did you start HuseyinTheBrain? Tell everybody a little bit about yourself, how long you guys have been on YouTube and how long your site's been going, and a little bit about what you guys do and offer.
Yeah, like in 2008, I was part of the school newspaper. Like, someone was like, "Hey, there's a video editing job. You should join." I was like, "No, that's stupid." And then I was like, "All right, I'll join." So I learned a lot about journalism, and I was like, kind of gave me free reign. So my buddy was like, "Hey," my classmate, my friend was like, "Hey, let's start a fantasy football show." So we started doing that. And as you know, like, there was hardly anybody doing fantasy football on YouTube. So like, even with not knowing what you're doing, you still got a bunch of views on there. So it was like kind of successful. And then we were like, let's just start our own thing after we graduated college. So we started that, and it was a lot of ups and downs. Like, the show wasn't that good, but we just kept sticking to it. And like, the cliche that people say, okay, when things are the worst, and when you were about to quit, that's when you usually have your breakthrough. And that's totally true because, and let me know, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but like, all the fantasy people I talk to, if things aren't going well, they quit in 2 to 4 years on average. That's like the right time frame. I'm all about numbers. Like, fantasy numbers go together. So it's like 2 to 4. Like, I've never really seen anybody go 5 years or more if things are just crap. Right. So we went, what's the math on that? We're going 5, 6, 7 years, right?
Pushing the envelope.
And it's like, it's not going bad, but it's like not anywhere, like, it's just not fire. And it's like, I have high standards. It's got to be fire. Like, it's got to be big numbers or big money or just something, like, it's got to be just really, really good. Something's got to be going really well. And it's not a full-time job. Some good stuff, but I'm just trying to sum it up. So anyway, we do a lot of parody videos. You've probably seen me. Like, I write some sarcastic comments. I do some funny stuff here and there. So like, we love comedy, and we always did Pacquiao parodies, Tiger Woods parodies, like that Nike commercial Tiger Woods did, and like, those always got good views. And so we're defeated, and we're like, let's go one more Mayweather-Pacquiao fight coming up, and let's do one more parody. So we're just going through the motions, because me and my buddy Mike, we've been doing this from day one. This is how it started. And he comes over, I set up the green, like it's not, like, not a lot of talking, not a lot of joking. It's like, hey, we're doing this, we're tired. So, okay, I do the green screen, get that ready to go. He's got his Pacquiao wig on, his Pacquiao coat, and we film, and then we start having fun. He starts like trying to fry some eggs with the gloves on. He's like drinking Hennessy. He's lifting weights, and he's got the belts on. Like, it just went viral. Like, not viral in the sense that, usually people think 1 to 10 million views, but it got 50,000 views overnight, and everybody was saying it's fire. Go ahead.
Do you know where that got picked up? Was it just through YouTube related searches, or did somebody post something?
We know what we're doing. So this is the plan. This is like super, super top this is like really valuable information. It's easier said than done. So like we've done this so many times, we knew what the deal was. So what we did was we filmed 3 different videos, but I mean like they're very like barely different, with a draw ending, a win ending, and a loss ending. And we had it ready to go, and I upload it right as soon as the fight finished. So that way, you know, when people are searching, there's like a crazy peak. Like it's an insane peak soon as a big fight like that's done. There's so many searches all over the place. So that's really you know, like it's so simple, but it's like, you know, it's easier, you know, said than done. And that's what this one guy did. It like he did an Obama parody. He knew that Obama was probably going to get elected, so he did an Obama rap parody, and it blew up like 20 million views like instantly. Like so we did that. And it worked, and it gave us the spark to keep going. Yeah. By the way, you got to watch that video. It's so dope. Like everyone, from kids to adults, love that video. They said it's hilarious. People say they watched it 20 times in a row, and we've never got that type of reaction. You know, like so. And then we just kept going, and then you know, I came out with certain things. Like people are right now. I came out with, it's called Let's Draft, and people copied that right now on YouTube. Like I'm probably not the first person to draft on a video, but I'm the first person to put my face on there. And I got that from the gaming channels. Like I try to incorporate like cool YouTube stuff in my channel. So I'm a YouTuber first and foremost. And so like people like, we've always been knocked off, and it pisses me off because people knock us off and knock me off before I make a lot of money. Like if I made a ton of money and people knock me off, be like, all right, I got, you know, I ate a good amount of the cake. Here's a piece. Like it's going to happen. But like I've had to get so many trademarks, and no one's giving me credit for the Let's Draft series, and like, you know, it's just going on. But it's cool. I'm not mad. Like it's not a sob story. It's just like, I gotcha. You know, like we've seen success, but there's been like some huge road bumps before I feel like the real success has come. Yeah, and I don't know, again, how much you know about my history or even some of the people watching from your side of the fence, but I'm a dinosaur in this industry, and a lot of people don't know that because my The Fantasy Football Show channel is new. But because I came from a different place, I came from from Fantasy Football Starters, which closed its doors about 2 or 3 years ago. So I've started this brand, and I'm trying to get it up and running. But I used to run Fantasy Football Extreme back in 2004, 2005, and I actually invented the first instant trade calculator and first instant draft simulator, at least that I could find documentation on that was on like a big site being used. Someone might have been toying with it in their garage. What year was the draft simulator? Because the trade thing I kind of see. I feel like that's easy. I feel like the draft simulator is more significant. Yeah, so like, I want to say was that 2004, 2005, right around that range. Man, that's old as heck. I know. And I've never heard of Draft Simulator till I've seen it on Fantasy Pros 5 years ago. So you can imagine my frustration seeing the industry blow up, because I'm an innovator. I love to innovate, make new things, do new things, hence why I'm throwing out this new Fantasy Football Show brand. Because I want to dominate the video space as well as I've done like radio. I've done radio for 15 straight years. I'm on 1580 CBS Sports, the longest running fantasy football radio show in the world that we can find any documentation on. 23 plus years. I've been on it for 15. So I'm like you, man. I'm an innovator. It's in my blood. And it pisses me off too that, you know, you see so many people using it. I was, 20, some early 20s, couldn't patent a trade calculator. I couldn't patent a draft simulator. Nor do I think you could protect something that all the way around so that people can't come up with it. But there were a couple sites. There were like Football Guys had like the Draft Dominator that you download, and there was some kind of trade analysis probably in that. I think there was a couple. The site that actually acquired my site that I worked for had a draft a draft and trade analyzer that would do it slightly different. Mine was instant. You click any number of players on one side, any number of players on another, and it tells you what the value is. And I have that on my site now. And it's very much enhanced from that time. But I'm like you, man. I mean, doing that stuff from the beginning and trying to get ahead. And I'm blessed to have a huge following behind me. Like I said, having this video show is my next step, and I'm planning on taking it by storm and doing great things with it. So I appreciate you coming on and being a part of it. And just getting a few faces like you on the show has been pretty good. And I interviewed a couple guys from Football Guys last time. Glad to have you here, man. Dude, we're one of the top fantasy football channels now.
That's
like
great.
20, not huge, but like medium sized now. So what are we at? 24,000 subs on YouTube and keep growing. And then I came out with this book, best selling author.
Show it up put it up to the.
Well, I don't really want to promote my book till the end. Like, I have to have people like me first.
Yeah.
Before I like.
No problem.
But what I really want to show off the book is like I can read well. I mean, I can write well, but like I have super ADD, super OCD.
Yeah.
I could never read a whole book. Like reading is like really, really tough. It's like torture after like 2 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes. Like it's so hard to read, and just accomplishing that just goes to show. Like people that know me are like, wow, you really like wrote a book. Like that's crazy for you. Like editing, I can edit a video, because that's what I used to do, music and videos. So I went to film school, so I can edit a video 5 days straight, barely eating, sleeping. Like that's not like I can do that. But reading a book, proofreading it and writing it, that was really tough. And then for it to be a bestseller was just like a dream come true. It's just awesome, surreal. Man. Like,
it's great.
We beat like Harry Potter. Was that J.K. Rowling? She came out with like how to play one of these fantasy games, but it just so happened to be in the same category. And Sal Palantonio did it the same week, and then Carson Wentz wrote like a forward.
That's great.
And like beat all them. Like you have to be bestseller for like a week or a day or something.
Yeah, that's great, man. I've written a couple things that I never got published, but someday hope to. But yeah, I mean, running out of time is a lot. How many guys do you have working for Fantasy Couch?
It's really just me now. Okay. Like, we got rid of a lot of the writers left, and it's been so much better. And my buddy Mike, of course, like, we do a podcast together, and he helps out with a lot of stuff. But it's mainly, like, it's more like a personal brand. Yeah. Just me on the videos, usually. And, like, once we stopped trying to be something we're not and have a bunch of writers. Like we had 11 writers total at one point. It just was so much better. And that coincidentally aligned with the same time we just took off from 3,000 subs to 6,000 to 9,000. And then it just went to, like 16,000 subs, 24,000 subs, like that.
Where'd you get your pop? So I started in January with this new channel. So really starting from scratch. And I have about 30 something in 3 months. Is that good to your standards? And when did it pop for you? Because
what's 30 something? What does that mean?
No, I said I have 630 subs. Very small number, but for 3 months. So I think we're popping quickly for the amount of months we're on. But for only being up for 3 months, where did you get your pop? Was it 1,000? Was it 3,000? Was it 5?
The thing, this is how I put it, and there's so many different perspectives to put anything in. This is my hands down perspective. So however you want to grind it, whatever you think is, it's up to you. But it's 10,000 or bust. When we're at 9,000, people talk to us differently, and they're like, we're more like just some guys. It was just a 10K mark. It's like a superficial number. Like, it was a huge celebration to us, but more huger to everyone else, how they perceived us. Because once that digit grows, it says 9K or 9,000, whatever, like the digit looks different. It says 10K. And it sums it up instead of 9,000, whatever. It was just totally different. People hated us differently. Like, we don't get a lot of haters nowadays. Yeah. Like, we used to get a lot. And I used to suck. Like, I used to suck at hosting the videos and doing that. Because Mike used to host them. He left. But 10K, the sponsors, the partnership, the way people talk, the way people perceive the views, everything changed once we passed the 10, I call it the 10K barrier. Yeah. Like the sound barrier. So it's how much you want to grind and get to 10. That's all that is what do you want to put in? How much do you want to wait? Do you want to improve or whatever you got to do to get to 10K? That's up to you, but that's the goal. It's 10K or bust. I don't care if you're at 9K or 9. Yeah. It doesn't matter. Well, you got to get to 10K.
I do pride myself on not being out hustled in this business, in this industry, and having the experience to weather through the ups and downs of growing something from scratch, because I've done it 4 times now. So I definitely have your passion, and I'm the same way. I watch a lot of people come and go, and people close their doors all the time. And I've been here for 15 years. I'm not going anywhere, and I'm grinding every day doing this stuff. So I do plan to have the numbers that you have, and I strive to get there really fast. So I appreciate you coming on. Appreciate any help you can send my way. Get a couple subs my way from today's show.